Girls softball teams won't be finishing the season after a brawl broke out during a game last night at Sage Park.
The big fight also landed a parent in jail. It's a story we broke last night on Fox10TV.com.
Fox 10 News reporter Paige Malone is live at Sage Park. Paige, it was a wild scene out there last night.
Yes, it was, Lenny's. Now, neither team agrees on who started the fight, but both teams agree on one thing. It started on third base. Now, these players are 14 and 15-year-olds, and the video you're about to see is shocking to say the least. Now, we spoke. Witnesses say it started after a close call on the final play with two players. You can see it escalated quickly.
There's a place for that kind of stuff, and it ain't out there on the field, you know.
You can see parents, coaches, and children going after each other. One parent was taken away in handcuffs.
Because I beat him up. Yeah, somebody push you, you can't walk away from them. You defend yourself. And your team, yeah.
So y'all think you handled it the right way?
Yeah, if one of us fight, we all fight for each other. Yeah. One swing.
Hello everyone, I'm Ben Becker, and I'll be your host for today's NYSCA training program. As someone who has played sports my entire life, as well as worked in them for more than a decade as a sportscaster on the local and national level, including ESPN, I know the valuable role that sports play in today's society, especially when it comes to their impact on the children who play them socially, physically, and emotionally. It is truly a privilege to be with you today because without you and the time and energy you devote to the programs in your community, youth sports simply would not exist. So I'd like to extend my gratitude to each and every one of you for not only volunteering to work with children this season, but also your willingness to complete the NYSCA training program to ensure that you go about your responsibilities the right way for the benefit of all your players. Before we get started, I just want to take a moment to share with you some brief information about the program you're about to complete and the organization that you will soon become a very valuable member of. The NYSCA program has been helping volunteers like you since 1981. And once you complete the program, you will be one of more than 3 million coaches who have gone through it. NYSCA is the most widely used program across the country, and it is the program of choice on U.S. military bases worldwide. The goal of NYSCA is to help ensure that every child who puts on a uniform has a safe, positive, and rewarding experience. And thanks to you, we know that can happen. Now, throughout this session, we will cover a wide range of important topics that you'll need to be aware of because each and every one of them impacts the quality of your player's experience and factor in to whether a child embraces the sport or walks away from it for good. We'll talk about the best ways to motivate children, organize fun-filled and productive practices, and teach good sportsmanship. We'll discuss what role winning plays in youth sports, how to build confidence in kids, bolster their self-esteem, and make every one of them feel special, regardless of their talent level. Lots of valuable information will also be presented regarding safety, everything from recognizing and treating injuries to dealing with heat-related issues and concussions. You'll also learn some crucial information on keeping players hydrated, as well as how nutrition impacts their performance. And yes, we'll cover dealing with your players' parents too, so that you're fully prepared to deal with any problems that could potentially derail your season. As we go through the program, we'll also take periodic breaks to allow you to discuss among yourselves specific issues. A lot can be learned by sharing thoughts and experiences with others, so this interactive aspect of the program can be a real help to you. To help make your participation today as beneficial and enjoyable as possible, we have collected the insights of some of the nation's premier professional and college coaches to assist with many of these areas that will affect your coaching and define your impact on your players. You'll recognize them from the games you watch on television, and some may even be coaches of your favorite teams. While their job includes some different responsibilities than yours, they also share a special bond with you because all coaches, regardless of the level of play, must connect with their players and genuinely care about them in order to be successful. So as you listen to what they have to say, allow the knowledge that they have been kind enough to share really sink in with you, and think about how you can use their insights to not only help your players develop skills and have fun, but also how it can help you be the ultimate role model for your team in the process. Again, on behalf of the NYSCA, we thank you for your involvement in youth sports and for your commitment to the children on your team. Now, let's get started.
This youth football coach might win the prize for being the biggest jerk. Saturday in Northern California, the coach runs onto a football field and strikes a player. Now, he is charged with child abuse.
They're out of control, and they're not fighting over World Cup soccer. We're talking a Little League football game.
Where are you two from? At a T-ball game for 5- and 6-year-olds, parents disputing an umpire's call rushed the field, creating an all-out brawl that eventually drew the police.
What's she do? She did her job! Go home if you don't know how to play the game!
911, do you have an emergency?
Yes, I do. We have a game that has gone out of control, and the team is beating up on another team. Someone is hurt.
On WKRG News 5.
A brawl between two girls' softball teams in Mobile is caught on camera. One woman is hauled off to jail. Tonight, the city of Mobile responds.
Plus, some changes for...
Just saw a lot of kids' sports experiences are memorable for all the wrong reasons. What you've just seen is some pretty shocking footage, and of course what is most troubling is what effect these types of incidents have on the children who are forced to witness such senseless violence. Now, I know that you may be thinking that these types of incidents or anything close to them could never happen in a game you're coaching in, or even take place anywhere in your community. But you know what? Violent confrontations at youth sporting events occur with alarming regularity across the country. A study conducted by the National Alliance for Youth Sports found out that 29% of the respondents have witnessed a physical confrontation involving coaches, parents, or officials at a youth athletic event, and that nearly 80% has seen a verbal altercation involving a coach or a parent. Of course, every incident is different, but a common spark is a volunteer coach losing control of his or her emotions, often because of the way their team is playing that day, or because of a perceived bad call from an official. And from there, the situation only escalates into an out-of-control incident that simply has no place in youth sports. We spoke with Dr. Dan Wan, a sports psychologist at Murray State University, on how volunteer coaches often lose control of their emotions. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I think first and foremost is the fact that they are surprised when what they see on the field for the teams that they're coaching is not what it looks like on TV when they're watching it in the evening. That they expect the child game to mimic the adult game that they see on TV every night. That's not going to happen. You know, I've heard coaches talk about how they couldn't believe that their team committed 2 errors in a certain youth sport game. 2 errors in one sport game, that would be a good inning. If you really get down and think about the kids are 9 and 10 years old, it should be okay to commit these errors. So the coaches expect it to look like the professional game when in fact it's not the professional game. And so the kids' mistakes, they get magnified that much more because the expectations are too large.
Now, youth sports bring together a wide variety of personalities, from the volunteer coaches and the parents in the stands to the actual kids themselves. So it's not just coaches who lose control of their emotions. We see it happen with players far too often too, who not only display poor sportsmanship, but behave inappropriately and disrespect officials. Ultimately, the behavior of your players is a direct reflection on you. It's your job to teach good sportsmanship, stress it at all times, and address any displays of poor sportsmanship the moment you see them happen. First, we'll take a look at a clip of the ultimate display of poor sportsmanship, a player punching another during a post-game handshake. Then you'll hear from some well-known coaches on how you can ensure that good sportsmanship is continually stressed by you and displayed by your players.
This baseball game ends like every other youth sport with a simple act of sportsmanship. But now just watch.
You push him in his face?
The video says it all, and you can see the kid reel back, load up, and just cold cock my kid, blindside him.
This is the result. A 14-year-old in the emergency room with a stitched up lip, worried about reprisals. His family tonight doesn't want to be identified, but they do want their story told. And yes, the video speaks for itself.
It was totally uncalled for, totally unprovoked, and as a parent, you always just wonder how something like that can happen.
If anyone other than the player who threw the punch knows why he did it, they haven't said, at least not to us. Monroe police are investigating this as a case of assault.
You've seen this kind of stuff or heard about it before, but I can't believe it actually happened in front of my eyes and to my own son.
I think the best way a coach can teach youngsters about sportsmanship, whether it's after a win or after losses, by how they act, you know, what they say. And you lead them by the hand a little bit. I still do it with my Duke teams. If we have a big game, I said, be humble. Be humble. I said it with our Olympic team. Be humble. If when you win, other people will say good things about you. And if you lose, don't make excuses. Take responsibility and give credit to the winner. Give credit to the team that won, because hopefully you'll be in that position in the future if you take care of business the right way.
People talk about being a tough thing or a tricky thing. To me, it's a piece of cake. I mean, how hard is it? Everybody wants to talk about all the bad examples that you might see on TV. Well, you see some bad examples on TV, but how many good examples do you see? And maybe they aren't always the thing that you played over and over again on SportsCenter, but you're a coach, you should be looking for those. Did you see the NBA playoffs last night? Did you see what happened after the game when LeBron went over and shook somebody's hand? Or whatever, or didn't shake somebody's hand, and how would you have handled that situation? It's your team. These are your players. It's your opportunity to teach your lessons and your values. You're not beholden to what they see on TV. Find the good stuff, throw away the bad stuff, and make sure that they understand that being a good teammate and being a good sportsman is as important as anything to do in life. And down the road, when they're competing for a job or competing for a sale or whatever, they'll understand how important that is.
And because we all know that our actions speak louder than any words, and that kids will model their behavior after what they see from their coaches, keep the following statement in mind from Coach Mark Richt about how your players will behave whenever you feel yourself getting upset.
I think they listen to what you say, but they remember what you do. So I think that's important.
That is a great point Coach Richt makes. Sportsmanship is such an important aspect of your coaching experience, and it needs to be demonstrated on fields just like the ones behind me here today. And that only happens if it's important to you, the coach. Let's hear some additional insight on this important topic from Dr. Mary Sarah Wells and Dr. Sky Arthur Banning, who speak at conferences all across America about this important subject.
I think just pointing them out when they happen, because they happen all the time. People just don't focus on it. And encouraging them. So if somebody falls down from another team, hey, pick them up really quick. That was great. Thanks for doing that. Just little simple things make a big difference.
I like hearing the coaches cheering for some positive activity on the other team. Kid made a great shot, or the goalie made a great save on the opposing team. Hey, goalie, that was a great save. I think that begins to resonate to the other players, that I can be in competition, I can work as hard as I can work, but I can still respect the athletic ability and the talents of the other team without getting upset with myself for not scoring. I think sort of that bouncing off of the verbalization that everybody can see then. The parents can see that, oh, it's okay to cheer for the other team when they've done something well, and it's okay to clap for the other player when they've been hurt and now they've gotten up, and just sort of that general respect that the coach can outlay to everybody on both teams, not just on his own team or her own team.
You must keep your emotions in check. How would you handle a situation when an opposing coach is behaving out of control or abusing officials? What do you feel is your responsibility in being a role model to your players? Well, we're going to dig into those questions a little deeper now. Being a positive role model at all times is obviously the right thing to do for your players. So we hope your discussion helped reinforce that point, while also making you aware of some other ways you can go about doing so. Now, when we're talking about appropriate behavior, we certainly don't mean to rein in your enthusiasm. It's okay to be enthusiastic because that excitement rubs off on the kids in a positive way. But if you go overboard and mistake yelling and screaming for enthusiastic coaching, you run a big risk of damaging children. And if you're yelling at officials, you're setting a really poor example for your players to behave accordingly too. Check out this clip.
Oh, I guess they got that one too, huh? Yeah, they'll get them all, I'm sure. Hey! What is that? Come on, guys! You're killing me! Ray Jones can see this crap! These kids are trying to win a game and y'all ain't helping them none.
They don't need you to holler either, all right? Now that's enough.
How about some fair? Hey, come on, guys.
All right, stop.
Then you need to stay with me and act like you want to play this game. No, you're not. And you're not. You're moping around, going, how come I'm not getting to play?
What you've just seen happens all the time in youth sports. In fact, one study found that more than 70% of parents had seen a coach yell at a child for making a mistake. So chances are pretty good that those of you who have coached before have probably witnessed it yourself at some point. We asked Coach Lovie Smith to share his thoughts on the topic.
I think you can always go back to how you feel and how you would like to be treated. I always go back to that as a coach. And as a youth coming up, I listened to the guys who I felt were really talking to me instead of talking down to me. As I look at coaching, I think it's more about teaching. All the great teachers I've ever had, they did it without raising their voice. They were giving you knowledge, and that's what you're looking for. You want someone to help you. So I think to just start, you start with that basic approach, and then you really go from there. Again, you want to get better. You want somebody to help you. And normally you shut people off who are screaming and yelling. So you start from there. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a time when you need to raise your voice to get the point across when you see someone just not performing the way you think that they should. But I don't think screaming and yelling is the answer to getting anything done. I go back again to showing someone is doing something wrong. Instead of screaming and yelling, take the time to show them exactly what they're doing wrong and give them a way to make it right.
Anyone who has ever played sports probably played for a yeller at one time or against a team whose coach was constantly screaming at players and officials at the top of their lungs. We asked NBA legend Kevin McHale and former college basketball standout and current professional player Alana Beard to share their thoughts on yelling as a coaching technique. As you'll see, yelling at children simply doesn't translate into effective coaching.
You can't allow your children to, you can't allow the kids to yell at the referees. You can't yell at the referees. You got to tell them, look, that guy's a human being. He's going to make mistakes. That's okay. You're going to make mistakes. The day that you become perfect and don't make a mistake on the floor, then you can yell at the referees. But until that day comes, and believe me, when you're in 7th and 8th grade, you're making a ton of mistakes. We're just not going to, we just teach them how to play. And that's, I think that's what's lost.
I think every day he made each and every one of us feel special simply because we came in the gym and we worked really hard. He demanded that we work really hard. And if we came in and did as he asked, he was a really good coach. He never yelled. That's one thing I can say. The 4 years I was in high school, my coach never raised his voice at us. And I respect him a lot for that. He got things over just by teaching. If we sit there, if we listen while he taught, everything works out pretty fun.
It should be pretty clear that yelling, except in those rare situations where it's warranted to get a player's attention, shouldn't be a part of your approach to coaching children. Now let's shift our attention and talk about some key points that should be a part of your coaching philosophy. You've all heard the saying that you only get one chance to make a great first impression, and that goes with your team as well on the first day of practice. If you begin with boring drills and no real plan, you'll have a tough time regaining the kids' interest. But if you start off with a well-planned practice that features lots of fun drills, your players will really look forward to not only your next practice, but playing for you the entire season. The country's top coaches universally agree that the best way to ensure that your practices are productive and enjoyable is to keep the kids moving and active. While NFL coach John Harbaugh agrees that can be a challenge, he also points out it's not a difficult one for you to overcome. First, let's listen to what he has to say, and then we'll pause for some discussion time. We'd like you to use this discussion period to share with the group how you go about making your practices fun for the kids. And if you're a first-time coach, you can contribute your thoughts on how you plan on making these sessions fun as well.
Well, I think that's probably the biggest challenge for youth coaches, is making everybody a part of it and getting everybody involved. And over the years, we've been involved in a lot of camps, and that's always kind of been the motto. Short lines, everybody's involved, everybody's throwing, everybody's catching, everybody's running, making it competitive. I think you set up drills where there's not lines. You set up drills where everybody's going against somebody and you have a chance to kind of encourage and impact every single player at every single moment. The minute you see a young kid, a player, a boy or a girl, standing around, losing interest, then to me, that's a disaster. Because you're taking that child and they're going to lose interest in sports or activities really for the rest of their life. But if you can take that hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, however long you have them, and keep them engaged, keep them doing something, and the more you can make it competitive, where it's them going against somebody else, I think then you've got a chance to have a special drill for them.
We hope you had a great exchange of information. Hopefully some ideas were shared that you can incorporate into your own practices this season. Of course, we all want to feel appreciated, and that's even more true for children involved on a team. If they don't sense that the coach values their contributions, there's little incentive for them to continue showing up to participate. One study found that 1 out of every 5 children who participates in sports quits due to an unpleasant experience. One way to capture the kids' attention and keep it is by constantly sprinkling compliments around to all the players. Think about how nice it is when you hear somebody say something complimentary about you. And you can double that feeling for a youngster competing in sports who craves receiving a positive remark from you, the person he or she will be looking up to. 2 basketball coaches who know how powerful complimentary words are in bolstering a player's enthusiasm for competing and doing their best at all times are Tubby Smith and Vivian Stringer. Let's hear what they have to say.
Well, I think a variety of different types of approaches. You know, everyone learns differently and everyone reacts or responds to different types of, but we all love to be told that we're doing a good job or a pat on the back, whatever it takes to let them know that little Johnny or little Sue is doing a good job. And I think just facial expressions, body language by the coach, whether it's clapping for them, pumping your fists, whatever it is can encourage any type of gesture. When as a youth, they respond to that, and they work a lot harder for you.
I think that it's probably true that everybody needs positive feedback. Everybody needs someone to say, hey, that's good. You're doing well. Let's try this next time, to acknowledge that they've, because we all want a pat on the back. So I think that that's far better, because you'd be surprised the kind of impact that a coach can have on a young person's life. It's far more profound.
As you go through your practices and focus on keeping the kids active and compliment them along the way, you begin building confidence and self-esteem, which is crucial for their development. You always want to be on the lookout for ways to boost kids up. It's vital for their growth as both athletes and individuals. Now, children who possess confidence will be successful not only in athletics, but life. Confidence. It's a great attribute to have. The more skills kids are able to perform and the better they are able to execute them on game day, the more confidence they'll have and the more enjoyment they'll likely have participating too. If you devote the bulk of your coaching to teaching the fundamentals of the sport and help your players get ready and a good handle on them, you're setting them up for a really positive experience. Coach Marvin Lewis is a big proponent of focusing on the fundamentals. Here's what he had to say on this subject.
I think that the coaches need to understand no matter what sport it is, the fundamentals of the sport will eventually make your team better. And when you have a tough time winning, it comes down to fundamentals to get better at that. So if you stress the fundamentals, you have a fun way to incorporate drills to get better at fundamentals, then you'll have the enthusiasm and the interest of the players.
You've heard a lot of great insight on building confidence, the importance of praising kids, making players feel valued, and setting a positive practice tone. When you think about it, when you really mix all these things together, you know what message comes out of it? Maximizing potential. The most successful coaches talk about it all the time, the importance of striving to maximize each young athlete's potential. If you're able to do that, your players will reap so many benefits from their participation. Let's listen to what Pete Carroll has to say about maximizing kids' potential.
Well, here at USC, we have a thought about winning forever, and the win forever does mean about winning games. It is about maximizing your potential as a team and as an individual player. And I think if coaches can keep that in mind and not get caught up in the score or the record of the season, and keep helping their team be at the top of their game and help their individual kids be at the top of their game, that's all you can hope for. And to try to be undefeated and all this other stuff, that's not really the point, and particularly in the younger ages. And winning really is important to experience and understand it, but more so it's about maximizing the opportunities to be as good as you can possibly be and really relishing and cherishing that. That's a whole lot different way of looking at it than what most parents would look at it.
Coach Carroll makes some great points. He'll also tell you, as will any coach, that a big part of your job is helping your players overcome adversity. When teaching kids any aspect of the sport, some will catch on much quicker than others. It'll be up to you to exercise patience, remain positive, and never allow your voice or body language to reveal any type of frustration with a youngster who's struggling in any area of the game. Your players are going to have difficulties. They're going to encounter obstacles. They're going to get frustrated when things don't go their way. or when teammates pick up skills quicker than they do. It's up to you to not allow players to get down on themselves or lose confidence at the first sign of adversity. Coach Krzyzewski is a master motivator when it comes to this area. Let's listen to his advice on working with young athletes who are struggling.
I think each coach, when they're involved in youth sports, has got to understand that kids are going to get down and they are going to get frustrated when things don't go their way. I think having a good relationship with each youngster, being honest with them right from the very beginning and being very positive with them so that when you get to the point where there is this frustration or they are down, it's not the first time that you talk to them. In other words, build trust so when those moments come, they'll believe you. And at that moment, be able to say, to give them an example of someone who else had a down moment that they might know, someone who's a big-time athlete, and say, after that, they usually did something very good. So it's not the end. I guess I would tell them, don't let failure or being down be the end of your journey. It's part of your journey. The end is something that's going to be very successful.
I bet that each and every one of you will find Coach K's advice useful at some point this season while working with your team. Of course, I know you're all aware that no matter how skilled your players are, how well they pick up the skills of the sport, or how great of a job you do preparing them for the games, you're not going to win every time out. One of the many unique aspects of sports and competition is that somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. And there are lots of valuable lessons to be learned from both sides of the scoreboard. In fact, many coaches will tell you that there are more lessons to be learned in defeat than in victory. Let's listen to what Coach Lovie Smith has to say on the subject.
Best memories are just at some of the early days when we were learning the game, the purity of the game, being taught the fundamentals from scratch and seeing how far we could go from there. When you keep score, I was taught at an early age, when you keep score, you want to try to do your best to put forth the best effort that you possibly can. And I have fond memories of not only the wins and winning games and being successful, but I also have fond memories of some of the disappointments that I had and learning, and my coaches teaching me how to come back from a defeat. You can get something out of everything positive and negative that happens to you. Most of the time, even now, when I'm going through tough times, you kind of think back on some of those days and how you felt then.
Anytime you're talking about wins and losses, it raises some really interesting questions about what role does winning play in youth sports? What do you think? Should it be your primary goal? Is your one-loss record the best gauge for determining how well you're handling your coaching duties? Is winning on the kids' minds? Should winning games be secondary to developing kids' skills? What role does winning play in youth sports? Well, we posed this question to a couple of coaches, so listen to what they have to say on the subject, and then we'll break for a couple minutes so you can discuss it among yourselves.
Particularly in youth sports, as long as the end result isn't about winning, absolutely, then you can build confidence in every single one of your players. You can work on fundamentals. You can stress working on teamwork and working to improve skills and work on that every day in practice, but to continue to encourage them. Whether they succeed or fail, as long as they're getting better and they're learning and they're open to it and they're having fun, it can be a very rewarding experience. But if the whole objective is just to win the match or the game, then you end up playing only players that will help you win that, and other players get left out. They feel left out, and then they lose a lot of confidence.
Really important that they have a great experience. I know there's a lot of pressure in society to win and compete, and even my nephews and nieces talk about, we won the championship. And I know when I worked basketball camps in college, we never kept score. The important thing was that they learned, and what did the players get out of it. And it wasn't just about winning or losing, but more what was the experience like for the young ladies and young boys playing. And I think if coaches have that, and we used to tell our counselors, you're not getting a bonus for winning the camp trophy, whatever. It was more important to us how the players, how the campers developed, and how much they enjoyed their experience.
Yes, of course, winning plays a role in youth sports. You want to teach players to always give their best effort. And if the wins come as a result of that, that's great. But as an NYSCA coach, it's really important to remember that the scoreboard doesn't determine your effectiveness with your players. Listen to what several volunteer coaches and parents have to say on the subject of winning and being a good volunteer coach who keeps everything in perspective.
I like to win too. I'm competitive. I'm not going to deny that, but again, if everybody tries, that's the most important thing. I mean, if they're out there and they're giving it their all at the end of the game, like you girls did the best you could do, you did a great job, and they might be discouraged, but we lost, doesn't matter. We've lost the game 5-0, but they worked. They played against a team that didn't lose the whole season, that wasn't going to lose the whole season, that were beating people 12 and 13-0. We're like, you only lost 5-0. You guys did great.
Well, I've always wanted a coach that motivated me, not really somebody negative. So I've always tried to encourage my players, motivate them. I don't ever want to be negative with them, especially at a young age. I just want them to love the sport first and foremost.
Whenever the kids mess up, they're not doing it intentionally. That was not their intent. They just, they may be under some pressure and the ball didn't go the way they wanted it to. So, the bottom line is it's just a game. And there's another one coming up.
The things that have happened, the experience I've had with my children with coaches is the making them feel special. At some point throughout the course of the year or practice, the making the child feel like they have something of value and they're important and their contribution matters. Regardless of what level they're at or what they actually are contributing, the empowerment of the girls and making them feel like they have value, I think is one. So I think that's very important. Two is the positive, the way they talk to my girls in particular. There's not a lot of harsh vocabulary. There's not a lot of harsh statements. It's more the building the girls up, the positive reinforcement to make them perform well, and that's basically the two most important things I've seen with the girls is that. And then of course the attention to, as a coach, you have to know what you're talking about.
Those comments you just heard should help reinforce to you that you could go through an entire season with few if any wins, but if all the kids are improving, having a great time, and arriving at your practices excited and anxious to spend time with you, then that's what is really important. If you need any further proof, check out the following comments from these youngsters.
Well, I like playing and scoring and just being with teammates.
I love hitting balls. And I love that. I love faking people.
Our coach he plays really fun games with us and he teaches us a lot.
I think that it gives me something to do, like after school, besides homework, on the weekends and stuff.
I love it when I do good things so that the coach cheers and says good things about me.
That's some great stuff, isn't it? Did you see those great smiles and that look in their eyes? When you get right down to it, that's what makes coaching youth sports so rewarding. Seeing that excitement, that spark when you make a connection with a child. Of course, it's a great feeling to help kids develop skills and perform well on game day, but it's the interactions with them during practices, praising them for their efforts, and building their confidence and self-esteem that makes life-changing differences for them. And for those of you who will be coaching your own child this season, you can also enjoy those same special bonds with your youngster as well. In fact, some research indicates that 90% of volunteers have their own child on the team, but you need to be aware that if you're coaching your own child, there will be some additional challenges along the way too. For example, you have the responsibility not to give your child too much attention or provide any special treatment that will be detrimental to the team concept that you're building. You also need to be careful not to go overboard in the other direction in an effort to avoid showing favoritism by being extra hard on your youngster or giving him or her much less attention than you're showing the other players. Let's listen to what some parents who have coached their own kids have to say about the experience and how they made it work.
It's challenging because, by nature, when you're a competitive player yourself and you've played at all levels, even professional, you have this vision that your kids are going to do all these things and you can see the talent in them. and you have this tendency to want to push them harder than they want. And the most important thing is that they actually enjoy the game and just develop at their own pace. And when you let them just have fun, then it takes care of itself. You just have to exercise patience. It's fun to watch them. It's fun to watch what they can do, and then when they figure out, hey, you know what, I could have done that if I'd done this better, and they try a little harder, and you watch them train and develop on their own. You just sort of guide them and coach them in that sense.
I have no problems coaching my kid because I treat them all the same. I expect the same from each player, including my kid. But at some times I know it's a little bit challenging because, you expect more from your own kid.
That's some really good insight. And please keep in mind that just like your players will make mistakes, you will too. And that's okay. We're all human. And when you can admit that you made a mistake and take steps to correct it, that's when you're on the path to becoming one of those coaches that kids desperately want to play for. Let's listen to what this husband and wife coach had to say about their coaching their own kids. They were kind enough to open up about the mistakes they've made along the way because they want to help you avoid making those same ones with your child. Let's listen.
Well, I positioned my child center forward, and she kept coming back, and I kept telling her to stay in her position, stay forward, and she wouldn't, and I was screaming, go forward, go forward, go forward, and all I did was intimidate her. She really didn't do anything about it, and she kind of stayed back, and at one point she was staying back, I guess, to go against me directly versus doing what she needed to do for her team and for herself. So what I'm going to do next time is hold off, wait till the end of the game and say you were completely out of position, this is where you need to be, and I'll go show her on the field, or we'll run through it at practice.
There was a particular game, and my daughter, she got tripped up in the game, so he allowed her to take the penalty shot, and she missed. And he didn't let her forget it for months. I find he's particularly hard on our own child. He's very easygoing with the other children. He points out where they've made mistakes, and he encourages them. And I think he's much harder on our child. I guess maybe it's you don't want to show favoritism, so you do the reverse. Or maybe he has expectations of his own child that he doesn't have of other children coming in. So,
as you just heard, coaching your own kids can be full of all sorts of challenges, but when handled the right way, it can be rewarding too. Just always keep in mind not to push your child too hard. We'll listen to some great insight on what one dad has to say about that, and then we'll pause for a discussion break. During your discussion, share your approach for how you make it work with your child. And if this is the first time you're coaching your own child, you could talk about how you plan on handling this unique situation. And for those of you who don't have your own child on the team, I'm sure you've seen moms and dads handle